Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well today. Today, we'll just cover Chapter 3, so just make sure to follow it on your own time and take notes just like you would in regular class. Okay, let me bring up the slides. So Chapter 3 has a few topics, a few new topics, and a few topics that we've already covered. If you were to look at the textbook, it mentions the product innovation charter, product portfolio, and product platform as being the key concepts in this chapter. Now, we've already spent time on the product innovation charter, so I'll sort of skip over that and jump right to the product portfolio and platform. So the portfolio is a collection of all the products or services offered by a company. And a product platform, these are product families that share similarities in design, development, and specifically production processes. So a product platform, think about how vehicles, you might have, a company might have 5 different pickup trucks, and they're developed in very similar ways, but have different finishing touches. That means they're on the same platform. So let's focus on the portfolio first. So I've got a picture here of the portfolio, not the entire portfolio, but some of the portfolio for Coca-Cola. You notice, obviously, Coca-Cola, Coke Zero, Diet Coke, but also Powerade, Vitamin Water, Fuse, Dasani. They've got a variety of packaged beverages. As we discussed in class, one of the advantages that they have here is that they have really advanced production lines, right? So they can quickly and efficiently produce these plastic bottles and aluminum cans and fill them with really whatever liquid they want. So going from Coke to bottled water to vitamin water, that's not a huge leap for them. It's a very similar process, and they're already pretty efficient at that process. So when a company thinks about their product portfolio, they want to make sure they have some ideas of why they want certain products in their portfolio. Does a product fit their strategic goals to defend a current base of products? Or in the case of, say, Coca-Cola going to vitamin water, they're extending their base. Development time, do they want short-term or long-term? Coca-Cola's products, I would say those are all pretty short-term because the similar packaging. Acceptance of risk, high risk or low risk. Again, Coca-Cola, the examples here, these are all pretty low risk, very similar products, just different types of beverages. How familiar are you with the market as far as like the actual customers you'll sell to? Does the technology change a lot? So here's one, if you, not specifically with beverages, but if you think of car companies as they're going into electric vehicles. In that case, market familiarity, they might be very familiar with their customers, but the technology is new with electric vehicles. And because of that, it's higher risk and it's longer term development. And then do you want to expand your geography, get out of your home base and get into other states or other countries where you could sell? Within a portfolio, companies might decide that they want to look for what's called greenfield markets. Now, greenfield markets are those where they're open and that they can fit something into a new area where maybe there's not as much competition, let's say, and maybe there's opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. So this would be, Starbucks selling their products in supermarkets, maybe even doing ice cream, because certainly they produce food. They could do ice cream in supermarkets. And they could be looking to leverage their current strengths, like when Nike went into golf and hockey, obviously already a sporting goods company. But Nike started as a running company, running shoes. And obviously over several decades, they've expanded into different areas, and they continue to build on that strength. Now, product platforms, all right, similar sounding but different term. Platforms are those where you have these families of products that share similarities in the design, development, and production process. So I'll give you some examples here. Honda uses the same engine and transactional combo in their Civic, Accord, and CR-V. You actually have a case on this where you're taking a look at different cars and saying, well, it'd be really great if, as opposed to just having one process for the Civic and a different process for the Accord, it would be great if you could use the same production process, but then you have slight differences at the end. So in other words, Civic and Accord, let's use those examples. maybe half of the vehicles are the same, and then the other half is different. But that still means that you're saving a lot of costs and time by having the same production process for half of those vehicles. Boeing does this for their different types of planes. Procter & Gamble, they do this by actually making very similar products, but then they market them differently for different markets. Tide in North America or Cheer in the Japanese market, essentially the same product, but different marketing process. Black & Decker, they do this. All of their different power tools are going to essentially have the same type of motor, but then obviously the finished products will look different. So these are platforms. Platforms enable companies to produce many similar products efficiently. All right, so talking about both portfolios and platforms, what are some goals here of like, what are you looking for in your portfolios? I mentioned strategic alignment already. You want to see, all right, if we're adding products, whether it's through our platforming system or not, how does it add return on investment? Balancing projects, and then also thinking of the ideal number of projects. So there's some different examples of how you can do this. And a lot of these that I'll show you are 2x2 or 2x3 matrices that are set up to sort of help a company balance out different aspects of different products. The example here I have is market newness versus product newness. The way you would think of this is in the top left corner, you have products that are very low product newness, very low market newness. And in the bottom right, you have those that are high newness for the products and markets. Generally speaking, what you want to do is have kind of a core of low product, low market newness. All right. So these are your quote unquote cash cows. This is like Google's search engine, right? They're going to have, there's not a lot of new things that they're creating with their search engine. But it does, it pays the bills, right? And then in the far right, you have really radical products. And then in between, we have a lot of other sections like cost reductions, repositionings, new product lines. Again, think of Google and think of all the different things that they have their hands on now. Some of their products are much more radical than others, but at the end of the day, they still have a big chunk of their business based on their search engine and the advertising revenue they get from their search engine. And that's on the top left corner. Product change versus process change. So this is bringing in that concept of platforms. If you're using the same platform to create new products, then the small process change you'd have in the kind of bottom left here, where it's a small process change. And hey, let's say you're creating a brand new vehicle, but it's going to be on the same platform. Okay, so that could be a big product change, but a small process change. Now, let's say you're using a whole new platform. That means you're going to have a larger process change, and then you'll have to decide if it's going to be also a larger product change or a smaller product change. Technical success versus commercial success. So in other words, this is where we're saying, can we accomplish creating this new product? And then what's going to be the commercial value? So let's talk about, say, electric vehicles. The likelihood of succeeding for a car company with electric vehicles still is actually relatively low. That's certainly gotten higher in recent years, but it would still be pretty low, the technical success. Commercial success, again, a bit of a unknown at this point. Certainly the electric car market is growing, but it's not, most people still don't have electric cars. Now, if you're to say, well, let's say that we're going to do a hybrid vehicle instead. Those are a bit more established. Well, in that case, the technical success is probably a little bit higher. In commercial success, well, actually, I would say that's not necessarily any higher, because while the technology is more advanced, is already there, more established, with hybrid vehicles, there's a lot more competition as well. So if Ford comes out with a new hybrid vehicle, technically, they absolutely can do that. They have that technology. But we don't know if they're actually going to be successful because the hybrid market is already pretty saturated. Another way to look at this is risk reward. You want a high number of risky new products in your portfolio. Or do you want lower risk ones where you know that you can make these incremental improvements? So along here, you kind of have on one end disruptive innovations, which are new to the world and new to the firm types of products. Again, you're going to want a smaller percentage of your business based in those. On the right-hand side, you have incremental innovations. These are improvements to existing products. This is why I've talked a lot about different car companies and, electric vehicles and self-driving vehicles. There's a lot of technology, coming about in the car, in automobiles. But at the end of the day, you can still buy a basic Toyota Camry or a Ford Accord, a Honda Accord, or, these really sort of, straightforward types of vehicles. In the Hondas and Toyotas and Fords of the world, they do still update those every year, right? There's always going to be another Honda Accord coming out next year. And so those are incremental innovations when they do that. Whereas the self-driving vehicles, those are more disruptive. Will they work? We don't know yet, but certainly companies want to invest in that. They just can't invest 90% of their revenue in that. It's too risky. So I also mentioned, and I mentioned this a couple of classes ago, that in order to get the product innovation charter into the earlier parts of the semester, I needed to move some things around a little bit. And so I actually took some of the topics from chapter 1 and I moved them here to chapter 3. But these actually fit well because there are a lot of the similar types of ideas that we're talking about in anyways. So when we're looking at new products and we're looking at products that we want to have in the portfolio, so I'll go back to this slide, you can see there's different types of products, right? Disruptive, tech upgrades, product line extensions, incremental innovations. Okay, what are these? What are these different types of products? Like, why do we talk about them that way? So there's a lot of different ways to categorize different products. And I think the way I would say, I sort of like looking at them is by splitting products up into 6 different categories. Now, I will say 6 is not like some magical number or something. It could be 5 categories. It could be 4 categories. But the idea here is that you have different groups of categories for different types of products that are going to have different goals, frankly. So one extreme end, you have these new to the world products. These are meant to create a whole new market. So these are really the very first types of these products. So, obviously we're not really, MP3 players or inline skates, but the idea here is with these products is that they are the first of their kind, but they're not necessarily the very first, the most successful, right? Personal computers, the computers that we have at home, the laptops we have, those were not the first versions, right? Those were not necessarily even the first companies working on them. Xerox, who we think of for copiers, they had some early versions of personal computers, but it didn't end up being a product that they were very successful with. But so new to the world products create new markets, but they may not actually succeed. New to the firm products, these are those that are new to the firm. The products already exist. So I've used the iPad example. When Apple came out with the iPad, it wasn't the first tablet, but it was new to them. Categories 3 and 4, additions to existing product lines. So when companies come out with extensions, in case number 1, we talked a lot about how Kellogg's was extending their product lines in order to go into snack bars. So those examples we would talk about in case number 1, that fits into category number 3 here, additions to existing product lines. And 4, improvements and revisions to existing products. These are really those incremental innovations, such as Procter & Gamble. They always make improvements to Tide detergent, makes it less abrasive, makes it more efficient if possible. Those are really improvements to existing products. The 5th category is repositionings. These are really interesting approaches. This is where companies take existing products and they reposition them to target new users and perhaps new applications. So baking soda is a really famous example of this. Arm & Hammer baking soda. I'm sure many of you have baking soda, you look at the back of your fridge, you might have it there. It actually has been, found to help deodorize refrigerators. However, that's not why baking soda was created. It is literally for baking. But Arm & Hammer realized this opportunity here, and they've repositioned it so that you can buy their baking soda, and it's specifically for putting in the back of the fridge. So really sort of clever way to use an existing product, but reach out to a new market. And then finally, cost reductions. These are where a company is simply taking an older product, they're reducing the price. They usually do this because they have a next generation product coming out soon. Now, I've talked a little bit about gates within the new product development process. When you're doing gates, what you're trying to do here is figure out, all right, if we're going to move forward with a product, we'd have to decide, do we go forward, do we not go forward, or go or no go? However, there are some concepts that kind of go away from this, right? So I know we've talked about this sort of 5-step new product development process, and it looks very rigid, and it looks like, it's one step, then the next, then the next. But some companies might actually try to overlap these, and they'll do what's called overlapping gates or fuzzy gates. These are similar concepts that sort of touch upon the same idea. But the idea would be where we have our 5-step process, but we sort of let them overlap a little bit. So in other words, we might still be doing concept testing when we create a prototype. So concept testing would be, stage 3 in that 5-step process. Prototyping would be in stage 4. But in fuzzy gates or overlapping gates, you would just say, hey, let's just kind of do this at the same time and see what we get out of it. And so that does happen sometimes. Hollow gates are where you make a go decision to go from one stage to the next, but you don't have any financial support for it. So this might be where you're going from concept generation to concept testing, but you're doing it without actually knowing if you even have the finances to create a new product. And so everything I've talked about here, this idea of overlapping gates, conditional gates, this falls into an umbrella term called process flexibility. This is really important for companies that are looking to create new-to-the-world breakthrough products, like these old PCs here. Again, these aren't the ones we use today, but they were very much a breakthrough type of product at the time. This being that people didn't have computers in their homes at the time. So they need to be really flexible as far as a lot of different prototypes, maybe going back to the concept stage, even after prototyping. And this type of new to the world product really doesn't fit so neatly into a 5-step process. Okay, so case number 1. Let me shift gears here just a minute. Case number 1. I've asked you to do the product innovation charter, and I'll be grading these over the next few days. A big thing I'm looking here is that you have the right steps in the PIC. Background, focus, goals, and guidelines. And within the focus, you have a clear tech strength and a clear market strength. Now for Kellogg's, it could look something like this. You want a background where you say, well, the market's changing, customers want convenience. In Kellogg's, they want to build off their cereal strength. The focus would be their tech strength. They actually have a really great platform technology, right? They can create, it could be Rice Krispies one day, it could be Special K the other day, but the process of making those are very, very similar, just different ingredients. So that's a platform. So, Kellogg's has that platform technology, which is a great strength. The market strength is that these brands are well known. So when they started making Rice Krispies treat bars, hey, Rice Krispies were already known. They didn't have to work too hard to market that. Their goal was that they wanted to have snack bars match about 75% of their cereal sales. So it was a big investment because they wanted to really ramp up this part of their business. And their guidelines were that they wanted to piggyback on existing brands whenever possible. So as opposed to just creating a whole new brand for their snack bars, do Rice Krispies bars, do Special K bars, really lean into these brands that are established. Moving forward, a lot of you, this is where you could get sort of creative here. Is what are the next steps for Kellogg's? Certainly with the brands we have here, they'd be creating different flavors, And then as you come into sort of more modern times, you think about how the world has changed in 25 years since this case. Well, more organic options, more probably sugar reduced or sugar-free type options, because those are going to be the things that are more popular today than they would have been, a couple decades ago. Okay, so this is kind of what I was looking for. Obviously, everyone's papers are going to look a little bit differently, but this is kind of just the basis of what I'm hoping to see here. Okay, so that's chapter 3. Certainly, I hope you take some notes and feel free to go back and forth here while looking over this video. If you do have any questions here, please let me know. I'll briefly talk about this in our next class as well. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. Good day.